All right, and we are live. Let me just make sure that it did come up.
This is such a big thrill for me.
There's like so much to check, but it looks like. Let me just. Are we? Do the thing. Come on. Okay, there it is. We're live. Awesome.
Woo!
Well, first of all, thank you for being on the show. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation and I have gotten so much great feedback. Have you been able to listen to it?
I have, and I just really, really enjoyed it. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed the conversation because it really, I mean, we didn't really know where it was going to take us. So it was a wonderful surprise to me.
Absolutely. Like I like those kinds of conversations because even though we've only known each other in the podcast circles. So getting to know a little bit
Yeah,
more about your life and like how our lives are going in a very similar direction. I think that was really cool and really helped like build that conversation.
it was just stunning to me how many parallels we had there where we could really relate to each other. And and I think for me too, really surprising that just the different perspectives we brought to the same kind of situation that we're both able to sort of give each other a little something to walk away thinking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. One of the cool things that I was very interested in wanting to talk about is the borrowed confidence, where we talked about how we look for our cheerleaders or our champions and people who really support us and kind of borrow the confidence from there. And I just thought that was such a cool idea and some things that a lot of people don't really think about, but it's really important to kind of consider when you're going for a position or you're moving into a position in life and you're not really sure, comfortable really how it fits.
oh, I just thought it was a beautiful idea. Because I don't know, we talked about this too about having that kind of imposter syndrome of being in a room where you're looking around going, everyone else here kind of has a credential to be here, and I kind of feel like I've just wandered in off the street almost. Why am I in this room with all these people? Why do I fit here? And having that imposter syndrome of kind of not feeling like you belong, but knowing that everyone else in the room thinks you belong. And it was just a lovely sort of thought to overcome that. That's definitely something I've had to sort of think about. Is looking around this. I'm only at a small company, so the room is literally director, senior accountant, senior project manager, general manager, then me. I'm like, the hell am I doing in this room? There's some big, heavy hitters in this little company. Why am I here? So just, especially in that really, it's a really small environment. It definitely felt more stark to me as well.
Yeah, that's just being able to have the conversation has really helped to shape, especially like in the last couple of days of in this last week really, because we recorded this a little bit ago, but in this last week it really helped me in when I'm in those conversations and they come to me with things and I'm like, I have this, I got this, I can at least try, and it's giving me kind of that boost of confidence.
Oh, and I find the same too, is that just the way you framed it makes me think, well, I'm the only person who thinks that. So, it should be easy enough for me. And then the other situation to identify when someone's just not right about the way they're thinking about something. How come I can't identify that about myself in this situation? I really need to be able to do that. And it was just a wonderful way of kicking me over that hump. So I'm glad you framed it that way. It's definitely helped me, especially in this week as well. This is just what I mean about that conversation being so surprisingly parallel, and we were just able to give each other some lovely things to think about.
Well, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Take a Six Podcast Recap. I am your host Leah, and I'm joined by Matty C of Astro League Podcast. Welcome back. We do have,
Thank
hey
you.
Lenora, welcome. Can you tell my audience a little bit about yourself, please?
Oh, sure. So I guess that introduction puts me in an interesting spot because the way Leah and I have met is through podcast world, and my podcast really couldn't be terribly much more different from this one, because I guess mine is very much about how filling in spare time with something completely inconsequential, like American fantasy football. So that's how my show has gotten me to the spot where I get to run into Leah through a similar community. And the story behind that really is that American football is a very small community over here. And my town where I live is Canberra. It's probably one of the more international cities on the island because it does have all the government business. So there is quite a large population of expat Americans here at any one time. So it is also, I guess, one of the bigger communities of people who play American football here. And I kind of stumbled into that community about 15 years ago. And when the team I was playing with, we hit a point where the guys were sort of getting to a stage where they had other focuses, and we folded as a club. But we stayed together as a fantasy football league. And the show has just become an evolution of that 10 years of playing in this fantasy football league together. And the podcast has just kind of become an extension of that. So that's how I come to be where I am today.
That's great. And because of where you are today, we've been able to have a great conversation. So we're going to kick it off with a couple of questions that I kind of pulled from the episode, and questions that we got feedback on from the episode, and if anybody else wants to, give feedback, hit us up on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, or even just send us an email and let us know what you think of the episode. One of the questions that was brought up was, how do you know when you've made it? Part of the episode, we talked about people who were living people who were at that stage where they're just like cruising. So how do you know when you have actually made it?
Man, isn't that just such an eye of the beholder question? Because, doesn't that really boil down to what you mean when you say it?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of the nugget of the question? And I guess this is one of those things where it's different for every person. Some people are really keen to climb a corporate ladder, and they see success as how much money they can make, how many wonderful possessions they own, where they own it, a whole bunch of status stuff. Other people, it's completely different, and they just want enough to have a roof over their head and to be able to provide for their family. And I'd probably put myself more in bucket number 2 on that end of the scale. That's how I know I've made it. It's all I really ever wanted, is to know that I could provide for a little family and have a nice, anonymous little life. And I've kind of got that until I started doing podcasting, I guess, and I've made myself less anonymous. It doesn't make me rich, I'll tell you what, but I think that's kind of how I measured my success. And it depends on what ruler you're using, right? Would you agree with that?
Right, exactly. Yes.
How would you? You just heard me ramble on for 2 minutes there. What's your take?
So honestly, most of the time, I don't even realize I've made it until I realize that I'm reaching for a new goal. Like, I'll look back and be like, oh man, that was my goal like 2 years ago, but now I'm like 2 levels beyond that. So it's not until I look in hindsight where I'm just like, I did hit those goals, but now I'm already on to something else. So I don't think I've ever been in a position where I can look around and go, oh, I've made it, because I'm in a constant mode of working. And because I'm in a constant mode of working, I don't really, or not constant, I won't say constant, but I'm continuously working. And so because I'm always working toward something, when I hit a goal, I go for something else. So that kind of keeps me moving, where I don't really realize, like, oh, I did make it. Okay. Like, now I'm starting to slow down and get to the point where I'm like, oh, okay. I feel like I can bask in what I've made so far.
I think you presented a really interesting concept there, the idea of continually making it. So you set the goal, you make it. You set the new goal, you make it. It's never one finish line.
Right.
Your finish line is essentially a new start line. And I don't know, I sort of brought this up a little bit in the episode too, to say, I know how my brain works. And once I started thinking about my brain as not being the sum of me, and started thinking about my brain the same as I think of what makes it feel good the same way, what makes my skin feel good, what makes my mood feel good. Once I started thinking about it as an independent thing, I could kind of go, well, I know what makes it happy. I can see that it likes. When I set out something that's a really long stretch goal, I can set little markers along the way to mark my progress. Then I can see a completion date and I can see how I score against it. And that makes me and my brain, independently of each other, quite happy. So the idea of, the example I used was in my spare time, I like to marathon run. And essentially that is me taking like a corporate idea of, let's have a stretch goal, let's break it into pieces, let's have a finish line so we know whether we're successful or not. And that actually the starting line of the marathon after 4 months of preparation is really the finish line. And I'm actually, the day there is about getting the victory lap. So this whole idea of just having continual start lines, like that's the finish line of one thing, and it's a start line of something completely different. I love that thought that you can just transfer that into other things and you can continually make it. You can make this level and that's making it until you reassess and go, well, I've got more room to grow. Let's move the bar. And you make that as well. That's just a beautiful thought.
Or even if you, because sometimes when you feel like you've made it, you're at the level you want, but you're not in the right game. So sometimes you have to transfer to go to a different game and say, well, this is actually not the game that I want to play. Let me see if I can just, even if it's laterally moving, or if I have to take a couple steps back, let me go to be in the actual game I want to be in. And then I can go ahead and make it there. If I can make it as something I don't like, then I can really put in the effort to do well in the thing that I do like.
I just think that was a beautiful thing you brought up in the episode too. You said this too about, it wasn't until I moved to this new place that I realized the game over here actually is sort of more where I'm up to. And the game where I was at before, kind of, I might have maxed out what I could do with that.
Right.
And just being able to transfer that to a new game where all of a sudden there's more field to run in and there's more possibilities. It was just a beautiful thing to think about because I guess until you're exposed to that, how do you ever know?
That's true. And that's why it's, and I was just having this conversation with my sister earlier. Hey, Rachel. I was having this conversation with my sister earlier that I feel like it's really important that if I have kids, I would want them to be exposed to multiple things. I wouldn't want them to just be stuck in, or not even stuck, but just if they started a job and they worked that job for like 5 or 6 years, I would honestly be encouraging them to move to different places in the company, or even move from that company altogether, go to another company, just so they can have the exposure of how many more things are on the horizon, and not just, well, because this company treats me away, like that's how it's supposed to be done. And I'm just like, no, a lot of my experience comes from being around other people who have had other background, other experience, and different things under their belt. Otherwise, I'm just going to accept what I've been given, and I won't know what else is out there.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of the place that I was at before changing companies, and I've been there for a very long time, 11 or 12 years, and they used to talk about the idea of mastery. And once you got to a point of mastery of a role, you probably needed to move before you got to that point. So if you got to mastery, you've just been there too long. The idea was that you should probably get to a point where you knew more about your role than the person managing you. Cool. That's probably how companies should work.
Right.
As soon as you hit that point, you probably need to be exposed to things where there's more growth. And I kind of ran into is I kind of ran out of roles at that place without becoming one of those managers. And I'd seen those jobs and I didn't want any of them. They all were under far more pressure than I wanted to be under. Because the career wasn't my focus. The family was my focus. So it's just an interesting thought you bring to bring that up. So like, well, once you get to the point of mastery, if you're aware enough, or the place you work is aware enough to see that you're getting closer, that you probably do need to move. And if you don't have a place to go in that company to do it, you need to find somewhere that you can. Because
Absolutely.
I don't know how you could be. I do know how you could be happy. I don't know how I could be happy in a role where I felt like I couldn't grow. I just don't know how I could be happy with that.
I mean, some people are good with working the same job, doing the same thing day in, day out for 50 years. That's cool. That's not me. I will be
No,
so
but I admire that in a way too, because I think, man, my brain doesn't work like that.
it does.
Like it's kind of from a place of admiration to be like, wow, I wonder what it'd be like to have a brain that kind of works like that. Because I mean, mine doesn't, and I don't know what that's like.
I I couldn't even begin to describe the frustration that I will feel like even and I mean for months in quarantine doing the same thing every day. I was like, people do this for decades. How? I don't get it. But no, my brain absolutely doesn't work like that. I really couldn't be able to comprehend someone who's like, oh, I've been in my role for 34 years doing the same thing under
Yeah.
15 different managers and all this. And I'm just like, oh no,
Well, you see,
no.
it's that part. In a job like that, is the growth that you're really managing a new manager who comes in. Because I mean,
Hmm.
surely I understand these environments exist where people in most of a company, especially like a family-based company, a lot of people in those businesses might not change for up to many years. But I think, yeah, in a lot of corporate environments or I don't know, certainly in bigger population areas where people just are more transient, it seems like what I learned from my experience was when I would say to people, oh, and I've been at this place for 10, 11 years, increasingly I had people looking at me going, why? And I don't know, my brain had kind of been baked in. My parents had both worked in long time careers in government work here for the same agencies. And I guess I'd seen that as an example of, oh, you find a really good job and you stay and you work your way around and you make the most out of the opportunities that employer gives you. But really what I was getting from people was, oh, but once you've kind of got what you need to grow there and then, why aren't you finding somewhere else to help you grow the next step? And I just had to frame my brain that way.
See, thank God for the people who came to talk to you because I don't think that I have ever been like while both my parents have been working consistently, and I believe my dad did like 34 years in his position, and I was just like
Wow.
I I mean obviously he moved to management and all that kind of stuff, but he was at his company for like 30 some years, and I was just like no. Like that. I hear that and I'm just like, yeah, making good money. But after a period of time, I would want to take my knowledge because now, especially, I mean, back then it was a little bit different, but now, especially with salary caps and the expectations still growing and things like that, like there's no way that I could be in a position for
Yeah.
30 years. Like I'm trying to even look at 10 years. I'm like 10 years
10's a
in
long time. That's a long
the same oh my everything.
Well, is that the making it part? Is when you hit boredom in your job, is that when you've made it? Because I mean, that's where the boredom comes from, is a bit of mastery and being like, there's not a lot of growth here for me. I'm not exposed to new things. The things that I'm exposed to, I kind of do by reflex, by rote, by the systems I've built to make me good at it are so hard baked and just they're hardwired now. That's
Yeah.
that's mastery, right? So that's making it. Is that most people's definition of making it, do you think? Or would it be
Yeah, I
more a
mean,
financial thing? So in the corporate world, your salary is capped in a lot of roles, and if you want better salary, you've got to move to a completely different role with a completely different set of skills and a whole different level of expectation.
right.
It's a
Huh. That's a good point. Because I was bored a lot in my previous role. Like I could do my job with my eyes closed. And the inability to have the lack of upward mobility what really got me where I was like, listen, I need to do something else. Otherwise, you guys are not going to be happy with my performance. I could literally do this with my eyes closed, and if there is no upward mobility, I really, even if it's the same, you give me the same title and give me different work, I'd be okay with that. But doing this thing every day, no, I could not do that.
Right? That's the point of apathy. I think I'm actually so good at this.
Yeah,
It's like housework. Like, does anyone really laud you for being super good at the washing up? Your work becomes that mundane. You know, I don't know, it's a silly thought maybe, but I don't know, my brain's set to compare things. I like comparing things. That's the comparison I landed on. You know, what's the mundane thing? Oh, doing the laundry. Okay, well, who's giving you congratulations and seeking to promote you for doing the laundry in your life? Oh, no one. If your job was like that, yeah, I get why it'd be hard to be interested, because who's interested in doing the laundry?
Yeah. Let's see. The next question that we have. This was an interesting one. So in the episode, we talked about the narrative that we had been telling ourselves before we moved up. So, and then now that we're moved up, we're in a different space on a new plane. What narrative did you have to stop repeating to yourself after you leveled up?
Wow, and I feel like this is one thing we both sort of mentioned before about the idea of, do I even belong in this role? Especially the role I took at this business that I've come to was really a sideward step in terms of, I recognise I needed to leave that place that I was at before, and I found a place where I could do similar things with a whole new set of things to sell on the sales, and whole new industries and a lot to learn. I'm like, oh great, I can earn pretty much the same money and have a similar sort of job without having to work in the same place that I was bored. But the place was lacking some structures that I come from a very corporate background. And once I started saying to them, oh, I think we should be installing structures around this and that, and they kind of said, wow, this is super valuable. How about we, you know, show you what we think that value adds to our business by increasing, you know, the title of your role and some of the things that come with your role. If you continue to bring this sort of level of, you know, professionalism and expertise to this role, you just add so much value to our business. And I mean, for me, then I was leaving a place where that was all expected, and I'm coming to this new place where they're like, oh, we're going to praise you for that. And that really kind of shook my brain up. And I think the narrative then was, once I kind of got increased role in the business, when it really wasn't the job I'd taken, was that whole part of, well, shoot, now I'm in meeting rooms with people where I feel like, I was just a sales rep, a career sales rep in my last job, and now I'm in this senior meeting room. And it kind of felt like I was the odd one out. You know, that thing of, if you can't see the weird person on the bus, you're it. Well, it kind of felt like that in this meeting room. Like, one of us stands out, and I can tell which one it is. And that was the narrative, and we talked just a beautiful conversation around that in the episode, and we've touched on it again today, about if everyone else in that room thinks you're worthy to be there, the person who's wrong is you. The person who's wrong is you. You've really got to, I think, the narrative you have to stop repeating yourself is, I'm not worthy. That's what I have to do. That's a long way of getting to that. I'm so sorry.
You know what? That thought of worthiness is, some people don't really talk about it too much, but it's a good conversation to have, because whether or not you feel worthy of the position that you're in, someone really believed in you enough to at least give you a chance. So regardless of whether or not you can do the job, and most likely you can, that idea of whether or not you are worthy is kind of irrelevant, because you're already in the position. People already expect you to do the work, and you have people who are betting that you can do the work.
Oh, they push the extra chips in. I mean, everybody else in the room is looking to you, being like, oh, so we hired you for this role, but you're actually more than that. You're actually more than we thought. And that's a weird thought. I mean, it's almost, I'm horrible at receiving gifts in the same way. Like, I love gifting people stuff. It feels good to me to know that I'm in a position where I can gift somebody something to improve their life, or offer some advice and improve their life. So that really tickles something in my brain that, you know, that's the dopamine kicks in for that, right? But I'm horrible on the other end of it. If people want to gift me stuff, I'm awkward about it, because it's just not my comfortable space. So to be on that end of it, and the company kind of gifting me stuff, but just kind of doing what I'd always done, that was a hard space for me to accept. I don't want to call it a gift because it's not. They expect stuff out of me, and I work really hard to deliver that. But at the time, it kind of felt the same uncomfortableness of being kind of gifted this extra stuff when it wasn't really why I came. And it really probably isn't going to change a heap about how I would approach the role. I would have just approached the role the same way, going, oh, this structure's not here. I need that structure to be successful. I'm going to build it. I would have just done that anyway. So it was an awkward space for me to get over that as well.
I agree. Because the space, and like I said, we are very similar. So the structure is lacking where I am because the team is so new. And so, hey, really, TT. So since the team is so new, I get to kind of create what the structure looks like. And so since I get to kind of create that structure, it makes me feel a little nervous, but then great because I get to look at the bare bones, look at the foundation, and make sure that it's solid and make sure I ask questions. One of the things that I had to stop repeating to myself was that I need an adult or I need a manager. I need somebody who is more adultier than me, more managerial than me, to come and do the things. And also, one thing that I had to keep in mind, because I didn't realize when I applied for this position that this was a managerial position. And because of the way that I present myself, especially in corporate, people tend to think that I'm more harsh than I am. So I had to stop repeating to myself that I'm unapproachable or that I'm not a people person or that people aren't going to like me or whatever. Because in this role, everything that I have, they need it. So when I'm like, hey, what are your codes? What codes do you work under? And I'm taking those down. My manager was just like, you know what? That was a good idea. That was a really good idea. And it was just something I had no idea whose codes were anybody's. And she was just like, nobody has ever written down anybody's codes. We just knew who goes where. And I'm just like, but if you're gone, how do we, what? So just writing these things down, and she's just like, yes, this is what we needed. This is what's needed. And so I just thought that was something,
Doesn't that feel too simplistic? Because that's what I found too.
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of something I would consider basic for it. What I need to approach being successful. Is that kind of where you felt like, now that's something that is kind of rudimentary to me, is people looking at me like I'm super valuable to their business, when that was just kind of part of the game where I came from. That was like just how things rolled. And now people are looking at me like I'm some sort of genius.
They're like, how did you get that? Yeah. And it's like, okay. One thing that I have noticed is that when people are in their roles for too long, they can't really teach people because they have only been talking with people who have been in their roles for a while as well. So I heard this idea kind of floating around, and it was, when do you think is a good idea to teach somebody something? And it's like, well, yeah, if you're an expert, you should be able to teach people. But if you're an expert, you've been talking to other experts in that field, you only know the language of the industry. You couldn't give it to a layperson. So the best time to teach someone is when you're in your first or second year, because you're not really wrapped up in the language of the industry and you can relay it to a layperson. And I just thought that was just like, oh, so all these people with 5 and 10 years of experience, when I'm just like, okay, but what does this abbreviation mean? Why do we use this? What is this code? What is this? And they're just like, hold on, let me, and I was like, these are simple things. Like I've been in baking, but not commercial. And being on that side is just like, okay, I need you to make it make sense. And it's really funny to watch them.
Right? And why is that your language?
I look some of these people I don't understand. I was like, why do we use abbreviations for everything? And they're just like, because it's just easier. It's not, because then you have to explain what it is or you forget what it means. And then if someone else comes, like I'm in quality control, so I don't know the work specifically that everyone does, but I have to understand it enough to be able to trace that they did it correctly. So if I don't understand it and you can't explain it to me, well, then there's a problem.
That's the entire system broken. Really got two core pillars, right? And that's both of them kind of broken.
Yeah.
Channel going one way, channel coming the other way. That's how it works. And if both of them, that just sounds like both of them were really inefficient. And oh man, my brain hates inefficiency.
I'm just like, I need you to make. I need my brain to understand. Like, I have this knowledge, and I need to get to this knowledge. We need to bridge the gap. I need you to make it make sense.
I don't know. I find that I spend most of my day asking questions. Even when I'm selling, and I'm in front of people who I've known for a long time, a lot of the customer base I sell to now, people I've met in my life before the place I am. So it's weird going into the same people, not really knowing my product the way I was extraordinarily well brainwashed little corporate soldier in the place I was before. So I don't know, maybe that's one to throw into here too, is the narrative you have to stop repeating yourself is that you don't know a whole lot, when all you need to do really is be brave enough to ask, right? I think it's tough because you want to have a line of credibility of, yeah, but if I'm constantly asking, people are going to think I'm some dodo who doesn't know anything. I think if you can frame your questions and you get practiced at asking questions, you can always ask a question in a considered way that shows that you're there to grow, you're there to learn, or you're really there to find out specifically what the other person thinks. And it's not all about being, I'm just asking a question because I don't know. You can still ask questions because you don't know, but frame it in a way that says, oh, I'm really actually after your take on it without exposing your lack of knowledge.
That is such a good technique to use, and not many people know how to do it. So they just ask, like, I don't know what this is. Can you explain this thing to me? And it's like, okay, but you know some of it. So start with the knowledge that you know. And then say, well, I've gotten this far.
Instead of asking the question that'll teach you something, is asking the safe question, which is,
yeah,
I'm 90% sure what that person's going to answer. Well, what do you learn out of that?
Right. Hey, Janai, welcome. And really, TT says, you are enough. Absolutely. It's like having that as a new narrative, that absolutely helps. That absolutely helps when you are building out that new narrative, is just remembering, like, you've gone through all these levels before you got here. And since you're still here, you've survived all of them. So yes, you're enough, and in most cases, you're more than enough. And in our cases, like, that's what it tends to be, is that yes, you're more than enough. You are everything and more we could have asked for. And I know we talked about this in the episode, but I want to hear from you as well as the audience. Whose confidence do you tend to borrow? We talked about borrowing confidence, and we talked about having people who are, standing alongside us, walking with us in this new space. Whose confidence do you tend to borrow?
That's a good question, because I think that professionally, it's the hardest one. I think in your personal life, so many of those relationships are so stable. For a lot of people, it's either their family or their tight friendship group or whatever group of people you tend to surround yourself with, where you get support on so many other things. Professionally, if you're new to a place, it can be hard to have the bravery to trust the confidence that other people have in you, because you really just don't know them. And I found that to be a big challenge when I came here. The people who interviewed me and then offered me the job and then were impressed with by my start, it was nice to have their confidence. I still didn't know them. I'd only been here 8 starts or something like that, 8 business days. It was too soon to really know. So then I really did have to go back to Leah and seek that reassurance from the layer of people outside my work. And I know in the first place I said I've been married for a long time. My partner and I have been together since we were, like 20. So we've been practically together 20 years, and she knows me extraordinarily well. We really happy to be quite vulnerable and know each other really well. So she was able to sort of really pick up that I'm kind of struggling with the idea of these strangers being so confident in me, and me being like, I was just a sales rep 10 minutes ago, and now I'm on this senior position, and I'm kind of struggling with the jump. Like, how are you guys so sure I'm this person that you're making me into? And I really had to go back that layer, and that's the first place I went to get it, because it was the place where I'm so accustomed to getting it, and where I know it's forthcoming in an honest way.
That's good. It's great to have those, and like you said, work relationships, professional relationships are not always the most stable. I mean, unless you have like a professional mentor or somebody who you get to lean on, and they know you very well. But having familial or friendship, people who are in your circle who know you inside and out, can absolutely give you the boost of confidence on a realistic level. And just be like, well, these people don't know me from a can of paint. How are they so confident in what I can bring to the table? Like, what bag of beans did I sell them that they thought that they were getting a beanstalk? Like, what's going on? But it's really great to, huh?
What a beautiful way to put that. What bag of beans? I'm writing this down. What bag of beans did I sell them? You're going to hear me say that more in the future. What a beautiful thing to say. Oh, I love that.
Let's see. Really, TT says, you always told me to stop with self-doubt. Yes, really, TT, because you have accomplished. This is someone, with her master's, who can put together an event, who can help, who inspires people. She has a great YouTube page where she's like, what are you at? 400, 500 subscribers already, and you've only been doing it for a few months. Great topics, great engagement. Always looking to support people, always looking to make sure that she's doing something productive. Like, absolutely, you have your self-doubt only gets loud because it knows that you could accomplish so much more without it. So I will always talk back to your self-doubt. Let's see. Rachel says, I have a few people who inspires me to be more confident. So are these people in your circle, like your friends, your family, or some people who you've worked with, or people that you've met like in your peer groups? I'm interested in that. Hey, Auntie Lynetta. Hey, Leah, glad to be here. Very nice topic. Thank you. Try to bring out the good topics. Let's see. I think my confidence level came after kids and accumulated. Look, having kids will make you realize that you can't just take whatever. Like, you have to start demanding what your worth is, because kids will absolutely push you. Oh,
absolutely.
I tend to borrow confidence from my family. Absolutely. Some of my peers are really great at pointing out, yeah, I can look at all the bad, but did I really sell the bag of beans, or did I show them a resume? Can I point to things that empirically happens? Like, I can point to it and it's tangible and it's proof of how great things can be, and or was it a situation of I just went in there and just BS the interview and hoped that I would be able to get this job that's out of my league? Was that the case? Is that even in my character to do? So having a good circle, whether it be my siblings or my parents or my peers or my friends who can really kind of talk me back from the ledge and say, look, you can think this and say, hey, I'm not really qualified for this, but at the end of the day, you're the one in the position and you are all they have. So you can either take advantage of it and make it go well, give it your best, or you can keep, being pitiful and take it and leave. Like that's really what it is. Let's see. Jenais says, I agree. When you have kids,
at the bottom of it all, they've chosen you too.
Right. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, the other thing to know is the confidence from the workplace, even if it's a new place to you, that's making you feel like you've leveled up a bit, and maybe you're not sure if you belong there. I mean, it took me a little while to believe, the workplace has the confidence in me. Well, they chose me. They could have chosen other people. There were other people interviewing for that role. And I feel like your best shot in any interview is to be 100% genuine to who you are, because you don't want to sell them something you're not. Because if you job and then you have to do something you're not, setting yourself up for failure. They chose me. They've chosen, your workplace has chosen you from a field of other people. They could have had other people, but they've chosen you based on what you presented them. So if you're presenting them actually who you are, that's a whole bunch of self-confidence you should have. And that, I wrote down self-doubt when you said that. And I thought, well, yeah, that's the way to eliminate self-doubt, is to remind yourself they chose you from the other people. If you presented them you're kind of already running,
Right. That's a good thought to have. Like, I went in there and presented them me, and this is what they chose. And since you were, vulnerable and your honest self in the interview, then that's all you have to be in the position. It's not that you went on and put on this whole thing of you don't have to worry about, filling the shoes of some imaginary being that you thought you created during the interview process. No, you get to just go and be you. That's what it is.
Oh, 100%. I don't think if you're in the interview, you're leveling up, saying, I don't know how to do that yet, but that's why I'm interviewing for that. I want to learn how to do that. Then, in the instance I'm in, that's 100% what I did in my interview. I said, well, I'm kind of stuck in the mud right now, and I would like to come here because it's going to expose me to new things. And staying there is just because it's safe is not a good enough reason to not want to keep growing. So that's why I'm interviewing.
Right.
But I don't know a lot of the stuff that happens in hospitality and other parts of the business as a whole. And was strictly wholesale retail. I'm here to learn. And then they've leveled me up a bit. I'm like, well, I don't know how to do any of that either. So, and they're like, yeah, we know, but we can see you've got the enthusiasm that you want to learn. And now all of a sudden you get this beautiful permission to not know and to go and ask and to, ask the dodo questions as well, and genuinely know that the people around you are like, oh, he's here to learn. She's here to learn. So I think there's that. The point of that being, there's really no point in not being genuine in the interview, because it will come up anyway. But if you're really genuine about it, you might just get the space to learn, and people go, oh, that's why they're here. It sounds like you kind of did the same in your interview. You'd be like, well, stuck in the mud where I was. Here to learn. This is a level up for me. Here to learn. And then you've got this beautiful permission to learn. You're allowed to not know.
That just warms my heart. You get the permission to learn. That's good. Janai says, I agree. When you have kids, you have to be their voice. And
Yes.
I agree.
I said I'll stop interrupting you now, and then I'm like, yes, agree with you.
No, you're fine. I agree. When you have kids, you have to be their voice until they learn and are able to speak up for themselves. Very, very true. Rachel says, family and my close circle. And having that close circle, is so important, because you want people to be honest, but then they also need to know you well enough to know what to say and how to say it. Because just because you want to tell me the truth, I don't want to hear the facts about life right now. I need you to walk away from me. Like, just give me some encouraging words, and then just leave me alone, please.
Do you have a friendship or a
Let's see.
partnership like this with anybody in your life? Because this is something that's true for me. Is my wife will present me a situation that's a problem for her, and I've got to remind myself she's not actually asking me for. My brain's already sorting solutions. She just wants me to be heard. She just wants someone to complain to say, "Ah, this is crap," and me just go, "That's really crap." She doesn't need me to go, "Oh, it's crap, but let me solve this problem for you." She's not looking for that. And
Oh
I think
no.
when you said that, it just kind of reminded me of so knowing how to do when in your group of people who give you their confidence or are there to support you, that's that knowing how to talk to you. Because I mean, there's a problem. My brain's the hamster's going to be on the wheel anyway. It's having that self-awareness and awareness of the situation around you from what the other person needs to be like, she's not actually asking me to solve this. Otherwise, she'd say, Matty, I've got a problem. Can you help me solve it? She's telling you that this happens. You just need someone in that moment of that. Okay, I can do that. Maybe later on she'll ask me to solve it. I've already got 3 ideas.
Hey, Jocelyn. That I wish I wish more people would take that into consideration, because what I try to do, especially when people who I don't interact with often, and they bring me something, I try to ask, are you looking to vent? Are you looking for advice? Or are you looking for me to take some kind of action? And you pick one of the three, and I'll let you know what options are on the table. Because if you're looking just to vent, then I can know, listen, you just want to be heard. So you want my undivided attention just so I can hear you. Got it. Cool. I will listen to you. I will validate your feelings, however you feel about it. If you want me to give you advice, I know that, okay, I need to listen to you so that I can tell you what I would do or what would be best for you in this situation. And then if you want me to take action, then I know, okay, you tell me what the issue is, and I'll let you know what action steps are available to you from me. And so that kind of cuts down on me realizing, like, hey, this isn't my problem. You just want someone to vent to, or you actually do want me to step in, but you have to give me the ability to state where my comfort level is in stepping into your shenanigans. So I try to do that with yeah. I try to do that so that it's not an awkward thing of unspoken expectations. Like my close friends and most of my family, when they come talk to me, I can kind of tell what they're looking for, and most of them just want to vent. But if they're looking for me to, take action or to give advice, then they typically say, hey, what do you think? And I know how to move in those situations. But in social circles where I'm not really close with everyone, I'm like, okay, before we get into the drama, what is my role here? What is it that you're looking for from me? So I at least try.
Self-awareness to stop yourself and go, okay, if I don't know, I'm going to ask. Yeah. And I mean, I'm just going to throw fellas under the bus a bit here, because I think we are horrible at that on the whole, and we are generally like, if you're complaining about this, let me help you fix it. And we're just so matter of fact, unemotional. Oh, that's the problem. I do this. And we're given permission, but that the hands is also involved in a lot of stuff. It's such an approach to fixing it, just sorry to use Aussie. It's such a, I don't know, blokes can be very process driven instead of in touch with, oh, well, that person's feeling stressed out about this, and they just want to share that feeling so it doesn't feel so heavy on them. Yeah, we're probably not so good at that. And the idea of being able to stop yourself to remind yourself, okay, with this person, do I have cues from them? Do I know them well enough to have cues from them to work out what they need me to do? Oh, I don't.
Yeah.
Let's have the self-awareness to ask what my role needs to be here. I think especially dudes learn a lot from that. I'll bring them down.
Why do y'all do that though? Like, what is it? Is it just because you don't want to hear people complain? Like, what is the idea behind? I'm going to hear half your problem, and then let me jump in and tell you how to fix it. Like, what?
Yeah,
I don't understand. I really want to understand that.
The problem starts. It's not coming from a person not caring. I'll give you that. That's is the curriculum and the guide. So, whatever colleague just lays problem with it, struggling emotionally with it. Guy hears the problem. He's hearing the really nuts and bolts part. It's like a robot or a machine or a car engine.
Okay.
You're like, well, don't you just fix this to get the engine running again? Instead of worrying about, well, actually, this person's really sad that the thing's broken. They're not asking you to fix the broken thing. They might already have a plan to fix the broken thing, but the dude's already starting to work on the mechanics of how you unbreak it instead of being like, this person's actually just genuinely sad. They just haven't keyed into the emotional part. I mean, I've been terrible at that for a long time, and it's taken ages to sort of out. Oh, other people don't just see the problem and fix it. They feel sad about it, and sometimes they want to talk about how they're sad about it. I could do that. I just need to remind myself that people need that, and I can teach myself to do it. But I mean, I just don't think that's kind of baked into a lot of dudes. I think the dude thing is to go, oh, that piece of machinery in your life is broken. You isolate the part and let you fix that, and then you can move on.
To isolate the part and just fix that thing.
So,
come on, really? Okay.
I'm all in one basket. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
I think it might be my bias. I do generally think that's the bloke approach. Just to go stereotypically, are horrible with emotion, and it's kind of, I mean, it gets joked about in social constructs all the time. How blokes just don't open up to each other, so emotionally unaware of themselves. And I think it's only funny if it's true. And this is exactly like the playing out of that, to be like, oh, she's really sad about this thing going on in her life. Let me fix the thing in her life. Instead of being like, oh, she needs a hug and she just needs someone to ask her how she's feeling. Guys are terrible at that on the whole. Right? I'm not imagining it, Leah.
No, you're not imagining it. I feel like I just want guys to be better at this. Like, I really do. I just want them to be better. I just need them to be better. But it's okay. This has been another great conversation. Thank you so much for coming through and having another one with me. Can you please tell the people where they can find you?
Oh, yes. So if you really are interested in brainless American or American students, us Aussie blokes, we learn as much as any other American analyst does, but we do it with these funny, weird accents and with all the jokey vernacular that you'd expect from a bunch of Aussies. So find us on Facebook and Instagram at As Really Podcast. You can see the link tree there too. It'll link you to everything, including our merchandise store, which is kind of new. There will be much less deep discourse on our show. It is a bit more breakfast radio and a couple of Aussie blokes being Aussie blokes. So yeah, if that's more your speed, come and find us. But thanks so much, Leah. It's so gracious to have me spend so much time going and just have a good time.
Thank you so much, Matty. I really, really appreciate you for coming through. Thank you to everyone else who has come on. Thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you, Really TT. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Janae. Thank you, Auntie Lynetta. Thank you, Lenora. Did I get everybody? Thank you, Honey T. I think it said thank you, Janai. Thank you to everyone who supports the channel. Thank you to everyone who supports the episodes. Please make sure that you subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. That's youtube.com/champions of discourse. Make sure you go there now, and subscribe. We're trying to get our subscribers up. We're at 127 now. And so we're trying to hit the 150 mark by the end of August. So thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Ma. I didn't realize Ma was on. Thank you so much, Ma, for being on. I appreciate you as well. Please make sure that you follow Astro League, and you can follow them on Instagram at Astro League Podcast, and they post some really cool stuff. And Matty C will be there, and it'll be a great time. Thank you all again for tuning in, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.